Okay, fifth graders, today we're going to be talking about a book called Pink and Say. Pink and Say is a book about the Civil War. We have the Union and we have the Confederate soldiers. They're at war. We have Pink and we have Say. They are both characters in this book. The author is Patricia Polacco, and she is both the author and the illustrator of this book. This book the setting is going to be in Georgia during the Civil War. We have many Confederate soldiers in Georgia, and we have many Union soldiers in Georgia. Okay, so this book is actually a it's been retold by 3 to 4 generations. So we have Say that has told this story to his daughter, and she has, in her words, re-encountered the events that happened in this story. So, as you know, being in war is not always fun. It can be stressful, it can be intense, and this book is going to take you on a journey through those times. We are going to go back to Georgia, and we are going to be in the midst of that war, and we're going to see what happens. There's going to be a lot of rising action, and there's going to be elements throughout this story that are going to hit your heart, and there's going to be lots of emotions. And when we get done with this book, I want to see how you feel about this book and how it made you feel throughout the story. So today we're going to be going through this book. I want to just kind of talk a little bit and show you just a little bit to get you excited about it. We have Pink, his real name is Pincus, and he is going to be, as you can see through this, I don't even want to tell you anymore, I'm just going to let you feel what you see. And we'll see how these events get you excited about this. We're going to see some characters you may not know yet. Get you what's going on in this picture. Okay, and then we'll get kind of towards the, we see some different faces and some different facial expressions. I saw some happiness in the last one. Now I see some different facial expressions. What do you kind of see in this picture?
He's scared.
Scared.
Fear.
Fear. Okay. Yes.
Distress.
Distress. I wonder why that's happening. So makes me want to read more. And then this picture.
It looks
How does this make you feel? Yes.
happy.
Maybe happy?
Confused.
Confused. Why are you confused? Why are there so many hands onto one arm? Yes.
It's kind of funny. Like I'm confused by why are there so many black hands on a white arm?
Yeah. Okay.
And what the?
So here's the front of our book. We have our two characters. We have Say and we have Pincus. Those are going to be abbreviated names for their original names, and we will get more into that. And at the back of this book we have, does anybody know anything about this? Yes, Justin?
Pretty sure that's the American flag after the big split up, so it doesn't have as many stars on the body.
Okay, it's American flag, maybe with fewer stars after the breakup. Maybe we're not all 50 states yet. Yes.
It's a bit ripped up.
It's a bit ripped up.
It looks like the soldiers might have torn it.
Maybe the soldiers torn it.
It looks like the war already happened.
Maybe the war already happened. What do you notice about these, Matt?
Those look like soldier uniforms, and it looks like it's after the war, and they planted the flag to say they won.
Okay. Can you tell me what you think? Which is this, the Union or is this the Confederates?
Looks like the Union.
Looks like the Union. So are we excited to dive into this adventure and see what's happening in this book?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, lots of questions in my mind. How about you?
Yeah.
Justin?
Question. The Union is the South, right?
The Union's the North and the Confederate is the South. Yes.
I mixed them up.
Wait,
Yeah,
which
no.
one's a good one?
What do you mean? We'll have to see which one's good ones, okay? That's for you guys to determine.
Well, I know.
We'll see if you like this book and see what happens. So you can follow along in this story as I'm reading. You will notice that there's amazing illustrations and they help evoke the emotions that you are feeling. Okay? All right, so Pink and Say. And then we can see some more pictures here. Okay. To the memory of Pincus Ailey. Can you see that picture? It looks like it's his mom and it's him. What is she doing with him?
Like,
Olivia?
it looks like she's putting on a hat.
Yep, she's putting on his hat. Where do you think he's going?
That looks like a army hat.
Yep, going off to the army, maybe going to be part of the war for the Union. Yes. Okay. All right, so we're going to start our story here. When Sheldon Russell Curtis, which is Shay, told his story to his daughter Rosa, she kept every word in her heart and was to retell it many times over in her long lifetime. Sheldon had been injured in a fierce battle and was left for dead in a muddy, blood-soaking pasture somewhere in Georgia. He was a mere lad of 15. He lay there for 2 days, by his reckoning, only to slip into unconsciousness and fever. He was rescued from this field by another lad who had also been separated from his company. I will tell this in his own words as I nearly can. So this is Sheldon Russell Curtis's daughter retelling the events from his perspective. I watched the sun edge toward the center of the sky above me. I was hurt real bad. For almost a year, I'd been in this man's war, the war between the states. Being just a lad, I was wishing I was home. My leg burned and I was angry from the lead ball that was lodged in it just above my knee. I felt sleepy and everything would go black. Then I'd wake up again. I wanted to go back to our farm in Ohio, and sometimes when I'd fall into one of them strange sleeps, I'd be there with my ma, tasting baking powder biscuits fresh out of her wood stove. Then I heard a voice. For a moment, I thought I was fever dreaming, but then I felt strong hands touch my brow, splash water in my face. Being here, boy, means you gotta be dead, the voice said as he gave me a drink from his kit. Where you hit? 'Cause if it's a belly hit, I gotta leave you here, he said. I'd never seen a man like him so close before. His skin was the color of polished mahogany. He was flying Union colors like me. My age, maybe. His voice was soothing and his health was good. Hit in the leg, I told him. Not bad if it don't go green. Can you put weight on it? He asked as he pulled me to my feet. We gotta keep moving. If we stay in one spot, marauders will find us. They're riding, dragging, and looking for wounded. Next thing I remember was collapsing in a heap on the ground and rocking with the pain of my leg. Everything started to go black. Then I remember him pulling me up on his back. I heard him say, Lord have mercy, child, you as bad off as I am. I'll tote ya, I can't rightly leave you here. I remember being pulled and carried and stumbling. I remember hard branches snapping back in my face and mouths full of dirt as we hit the ground to keep from being seen. I remember slogging through streams, hauling up small bluffs, and belly crawling through dry fields. I remember these things in half sleep-like, but I do remember being carried for a powerful, long way. Notice how he's gripping the grass, kind of pulling him along, and you can see his injuries too. fever must have took me good, 'cause I could feel a cool, sweet-smelling quilt next to my face. Soft, gentle, warm hands were stroking my head with a cool, wet rag. "Look at that morning that's coming," a woman's voice said as she spooned oat porridge into me. "Do your mama know what a beautiful big boy she has?" Where am I? Is this heaven?" I asked. She tossed her head back and laughed. "No, child. Pincus brung you home to me. Don't you remember?" The mahogany child, I thought. "Both you children been on the run for days, and a miracle of God Almighty brung you both here. Yes, indeed, child, a miracle." I remember thinking, could this war have been so close to this lad's home? I couldn't imagine having a war right in his backyard. I looked over and saw him looking out the window light. "Guess you don't remember much," he said. "I'm Pincus Aloud. Fought in the 48th Colored. Found you after I got lost from my company." "My name is Sheldon. Sheldon Curtis," I said weakly. "This is my mother, sweet Momo Bay," he said as she smiled at me. Lord, I never thought I'd see my dear boy again," she said as she hugged him. "I'd been getting along, though Pincus. Warm things got left in the big house when the family left. Dried goods, too. The rest I'd been getting from the woods. They's a freshwater spring. Still have some chickens. Even got an old cow back out back, still gifts." "Then you have been all alone here?" Pincus asked his mother. "Where is everybody?" "Your daddy run off to fight a month ago. All the hens and their children run off out of harm's way. But I stayed. I prayed to the Lord every day. My prayers were surely answered, 'cause he brought my baby back here to stay," she said as her face beamed. "You ain't never gonna leave your mama again, are you, child?" she said softly. Pincus looked troubled and didn't answer. "I'm going down the stream and pound these clothes of yours," she said as she ready to leave us. "If you hear marauders coming, get for the root cellar door. Stay down there till they gone. That's what I've been doing." "Marauders here?" Pincus said with an alarm. "They've seen there's nothing here for them, child. Nothing." As soon as she left, Pincus sank to my bedside. "Sheldon, boy," he whispered, "as soon as you healed up, we gotta get away from here. We're putting Momo Bay in great danger by being here. If they come find us, she'll be holding troopers." Then his voice trailed off. "We gotta get back to our outfits if we can find them." "You mean back to the war?" I asked. I must have gone pale as he went on to say, "It's the only way, ain't it?" Then he looked at me. "Sheldon, you all right? You look bothered," he said as he eased me back. "You can call me Say," I said. "Everybody in my family calls me Say, not Sheldon. I suspect you're my family now." "Near enough, Say, near enough," he said as he chucked the blanket underneath my feet. "You can call me Pink," he said softly as he smiled. For the next week, Momo Bay fed us both up good. Raw and milk and cornbread never tasted so good in all my born days. It were the first time in months my victuals didn't have any mealy worms in it. She saw to it that I tried to walk a little every day. "So that mean-looking leg don't go stiff on you and cripple up," she'd say. This place wasn't that much different from our farmhouse in Ohio. More poor, maybe, but it smelled the same, like pine boards and good cooking. A mess of beans with salt pork, cornbread, greens, and onions. When we slept, she sat near us, stoked the fire, and watched over us. Never thought I'd feel safe enough to sleep dead again, deep again. "My mother and Kalo and my father jumped the broom on this very spot," Pink said as he walked me on my first day outdoors. "And that's where the master's house, Master Aloud." Pink spoke quietly as he helped me along. "How come you have his last name?" I asked. Boy, when you own, you ain't got no name of your own. Even Kalo had to take that name. As we rested under the willow tree, Pink asked me about my family back home. Got one brother still at home to help run the place for Pa, I answered. What's your outfit again? Pink asked. He'd asked me before. Ohio 24th. I carried the staff. Wasn't supposed to carry a gun, but then so many died, even us boys had to carry after so many were slaughtered like hogs. Least you got to carry. In the 48th, we couldn't have guns at first. We fought with sticks and hammers and sledges. Can you imagine not trusting us with our own fight? I couldn't imagine such a thing. Then when they did finally give us muskets, they were from the Mexican-American War. Those muskets jammed and misfired. Then how in God's name can you want to go back? I asked. 'Cause it's my fight, say? Ain't it yours too? If we don't fight, then who will? I had no answer for him. But God forgive me, I didn't want to ever go back to it. After a few more days, I could walk a little steadier, but still needed help. Pink took me out by the big house and walked me through it. Weren't much left of it really, it was mostly burned out. Master Lee had a library full of books right here, he said. He taught me to read, and even though it was against the law. He must have been a good man, I said. More bad than good, say. Sometimes I think he just liked being read to. There was this book of poetry, say, that was this thick. Every night I'd read aloud to him from that book. I blessed this house because of all those beautiful books, but I cursed it too, for what it stood for. We walked a little bit further. To be born a slave is a heap of old trouble, say, but after Lee taught me to read, even though he owned my person, I knew that nobody ever could really own me. You feel hot, Pink, I said. Lord, I think you're as sick as me. Let me fetch you back to the house. I'll be fine, boy. Just a little tired, that's all. I'll be ready to fight, though. I'll be ready to fight. That night, after we ate, Momo Bay came back to the table with a worn old Bible. She was so happy. My heart ached at the thought of telling her we'd be leaving soon. Master Lee showed him how paper talks. Show him, Pink, she said. We took out a pair of spectacles from his pocket and opened up to the Bible, to the Psalms of David, and started to read. His voice was steady and had such wonder. Just hearing them words made pictures come into my head. I surely do wish I could read, I announced to them without thinking. When Pink saw I was ashamed, he took my hand. I'll teach you, say. One day I'll teach you. I could feel my face flushing up. Then I spoke up. I done something important, I announced. Of course you have, child. Of course you have, his mother said. I touched Mr. Lincoln's hand. It was near Washington. We were quartered there just before Bull Run. The president himself was shaking everyone's hand, and I just put my hand right out. And he took it? Pink asked. Yep, he took it, I answered. Now there's a sign, ain't it? He said, smiling broadly. Touch my hand, Pink. Now you can say you touched the hand that shook the hand of Abraham Lincoln. Next best thing to touching him, Momo Bay said in wonder. Most of the next day, Pink was studying an old map. Martyrs don't fan out further than 30 miles or so from their camps. If they come here, their units must be that close. We gotta get south of the river. See here, say? That's where my troops were headed. We can meet up with them about here, I figure. Meet up with who? You ain't leaving, his mother's voice caught as she came upon us. Now, my mother, you knew we couldn't be staying here. You had to know that, he said as he tried to calm her. No, my babies, my dear babies, she cried. She was inconsolable for a time. Then she sat still, feared as she just listened. Mother, This war has to be won on. This stickiness that has taken this land will never stop. Pink always called slavery the sickness. When we talked, we have to go. He knelt at her feet. By the look that came into her eyes, she'd known that this day was a-comin'. I could feel my breathing catch. My chest was heavy. My hands were sweating and I felt sick to my stomach. I knew that I had to tell Pink something. I just didn't know how. That night I couldn't sleep. What's wrong, child? Momo Bay said from her chair. I don't want to go back, I blurted out. I know, child, she said. Of course you don't. You don't understand. I took up and ran away from my unit. I was hit when I was running. I sobbed so hard my ribs hurt. I'm a coward and a deserter. She looked at the fire and said nothing for a long time. Then her voice covered my cries. You ain't nothing of the kind. You a child. A child. Of course you scared. Ain't nobody that ain't. I'm not brave like Pink. I'm not brave. Child, being brave don't mean you ain't afraid. You know that. I don't want to die. They's things worse than death, child, but you got nothing to fear. You are here now, and I'm hugging you up. You ain't going to be an old man. You're going to be an old man someday. When it's your time, the sweet Lord will send a hummingbird to fly your soul to heaven. Now you ain't afraid of hummingbirds, are you? Her words brought me sweet sleep. That night I dreamed of hummingbirds and green pastures full of sunlight and wilderness. The next morning we mustered to leave. We packed cornbread, salt pork, and dried beans. I would have done just about anything to stay, but my place was to go with Pink. I owed him that. Just as we were making the last sweep of the place, making sure that there were no signs of us ever being there, we heard wild screams and shrieks coming from the woods. Marauders! Pink said as he grabbed for a piece of wood for a club. Momo Bay took it from him. Get to the root cellar. They ain't got no truck with no old darn. They ain't got no truck with an old dark woman. You get that cellar, you hear? We ain't like it, but then she pushed us. Hurry, before they're here. She lifted the root cellar door and shoved us in. Don't come out till I tell you. We heard the porch steps creak as she ran from the cabin. She's drawing them off, Pink whispered. When the marauders came in, my heart was a-pounding so hard I was sure they could hear it up there above us. There was a terrible commotion as they ransacked looking for food. Then there was silence. A single shot echoed through the trees outside. They let out a war whoop as they thundered off. We waited for a sign from Momo Bay, but it didn't come. Finally, we climbed out and ran outside to see Momo Bay just laying beyond the porch. We put you in their way by staying here, Pink cried as he rocked her in his arms. Her eyes were looking in a faraway place as he closed them. Your son loves you, Momo Bay. Your son loves you, he sobbed as he kissed her. We both held her hand until there was no more warmth in it. After we buried her under the willow tree, we set out. Pink figured we were a 3 days walk from the Union troops. He watched the movement of the sun. Her words still rang in my heart. Her words about being brave. My steps were as sure as they now had ever been since the war started. We walked in the open, as clear as country stroll, until the morning of the second day. Then we knew we were being followed. Take these, Pink said as he took his spectacles from his pocket. If they catch me with them, there'll sure be trouble. For sure. When they caught up to us, one yelled at me, "Where you going with that dark boy?" I was afraid to answer because of my northern accent. It would be dead sure give us away. "Boy, that outfit you part of," the leader barked. I couldn't answer. "You Union boy?" One jeered as he pulled my uniform from my knapsack. "No, I ain't no Yankee. I got that from a dead one," I sputtered, trying to convince them. That's when we were grabbed. My words had given us away. We were prisoners of the Confederate Army. We were held up in a barn that night. Pink shivered with fear. I held him as he had done for me. The next morning we were thrown into a boxcar. We rode for what seemed 2 days, stopping many times. When the door slid open that daylight was blinding. We were loaded into a buckboard and then taken through town. The townsfolk looked hard at us, as they had left for us was mean looks and a heap of hate. We jarred to a stop in front of the gates that marked the entrance to a stockade. "It says Andersonville," Pink whispered. My heart stopped. I had heard of this place. It was one of the worst of the Confederate camps. When we were pulled from the buckboard, we fell hard to the ground. "No, no," I begged as they pulled us both along. Because of his fever, Pink stumbled and fell. They dragged him along with such meanness. He did not protest until they forced us in different directions. Then he reached for me and said, "Let me touch the hand that touched Mr. Lincoln. Say just one last time." I watched as tears filled his eyes and cleaved my hand to his until they wrenched us apart. They smote him and dragged him away from me. He looked back at me and tried to say something more, but they crossed his back with knotted hemp and pushed him along. Sheldon Russell Curtis was released from Andersonville prison some months later, weighing no more than 78 pounds. Andersonville was built to hold only 10,000 prisoners, but by the end of the war, it held 33,000 soldiers. There was no fresh water, no shelter, and no food. 13,000 men and boys died of starvation and dysentery. Sheldon Curtis returned to his home and recovered. He settled in Berlin Township in Sarank, Michigan. He married Abigail N. Barnard and fathered 7 children. He became a grandfather and a great-grandfather during his long lifetime. He died a very old man in 1924. Pincus Ali never returned home. For him, there was to be no wife, no children, no grandchildren to remember him. It was told that he was hanged within hours after he was taken into Andersonville. His body was thrown into a lime pit. I know this story to be true because Sheldon Russell Curtis told his daughter Rosa. Rosa Curtis Stowell told it to her daughter Estelle. Estella Stowell Barber in turn told it to her son William. Then he told me his daughter Patricia. When my father finished this story, he put out his hand and said, "This is the hand that has touched the hand that has touched the hand that shook the hand of Abraham Lincoln." This book serves as a written memory of Pincus Ali, since there are no living descendants to do this for him. When you read this, before you put this book down, say his name aloud and vow to remember him always. Pincus Ali. Wow, huh?
Yeah. It's powerful.
Okay. Yeah, powerful. Okay, heart-wrenching, stressful. What other words would you describe this story, Olivia? Intense.
Like, I wouldn't say intense, but like sad or like
Sad. Very sad. Yes.
sad at the end, kind of intense in the middle.
Yes.
Wow.
Wow. Great description. Yes.
Truthful.
Very truthful, honest.
I don't know how to describe it.
Yeah, I know. It is so much, isn't there? Yes.
Like happy when I came in to see that there was family with, or like when Mama McVeigh was there and realized that Pink was still alive.
Yes, she was excited and elated to have her son back, wasn't she? So there's moments of happiness and there's moments of hope in there, even even though there's devastation. So, do you feel like it takes you back to the Civil War?
Yes.
Does it help you see how some of those soldiers felt?
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you, if I was in war myself, I wouldn't wanna go back either, especially if you'd gone through some of it and were still alive. How do you grab the strength and bravery to go back into it? But they knew they had to protect Momo
It
Bay.
reminds me a lot of the World War.
Yep, a lot of the World War today, isn't it? Yes.
Reminds me of the Revolutionary War.
Would you recommend others in your grade to read this story?
Yes.
What would it help? Why would you recommend it to them?
Kids just sometimes give up on things.
Yep, sometimes kids give up on things.
Sometimes, people just say stuff that's not true about stuff that needs to be told about truthfully.
Yeah, yep, people tell things about stuff that they need to hear truthfully. Yes.
Because it's a really good book and it helps you understand more on what happened in the Civil War.
Yep, helps us understand more.
So they can know that that during bad times there's always some good times.
Yep, and there's good things to remember about certain people. I'm sure that Say has some good memories about Momo Bay, and Pincus saved his life. He's very thankful.
Probably I would recommend it. I'm a lot more interested, but I would also do it because a lot of kids don't know a lot about the Civil War.
They don't know a lot about the Civil War. What was the Civil War about?
It was the war to the North and South didn't agree on whether slavery should end or continue, so they had a war.
They wouldn't release the slaves, would they? Okay.
It's not like any book I've ever heard before. It's very, very different, but not in a bad way. But it's so deep.
Very deep. I don't think people see books like this and they think easy children's book, and they don't understand that how meaningful in the depth that a short story can have and how impactful it can be. I challenge you not only to read chapter books, but sometimes find these shorter books that are picture books. The pictures were amazing. It really evoked a lot of feelings. You could see the facial expressions, and it helped you feel what they were feeling.
Something that I didn't really know about war before I started talking about it with my mom and dad. War isn't 3 weeks of really, really bad fighting. It's gonna last possibly 5 years. War is gruesome, it's terrible. People die.
Yes, it is gruesome. It's terrible. People do die. Matt.
So my dad he used to be a history teacher, so he has a bunch of war books and stuff, and he gave most of them to me, so I could read them.
Do you have some on the Civil War?
I have one, but I haven't read it yet.
Does this help you or encourage you to maybe pick it up and see what it was more detailed stuff and more facts? Yes, my dear.
In the book, I think they chose the right picture on the cover, so you don't think, oh, well, it's not, so, because it's not, all bad. If they just showed a picture of, say, on the ground in the middle of the field with his knee shot while he was running, then you would have thought, oh, well, maybe kids shouldn't read this. But since they put that in there, it's oh, well, maybe there is a lot of hope.
Or friendship.
In bad times and friendship.
Awesome.
It's a book that is good and has it's not only for the younger grades and kids, but it also has some words for older kids and pictures that
Yeah, I don't think this is, I agree with you, I think it's for a more mature audience. I like that you've mentioned that the vocabulary is just, it's not easy. There's some challenging, good words in here that can help you broaden your vocabulary, and the pictures are also, can be mature for some people. So yes, you have to pick the right audience for this, and I'm glad I picked you guys. I hope that you enjoyed this book as much as I did the first time reading it. So this author does have other books. She has a couple in our library, The Graves Family, and then Thank You, Mr. Faulkner. So these are two more, and then there's also another book that she has that is called My Keeper's Quilt, and that's another one, the Keeping Quilt, and it's about highlights the significance of family and heritage, and would be probably a good one for you guys to read after experiencing something like this. So don't be afraid to look her up on our catalog, and keep looking for her, The Keeping Quilt. So that's a very interesting book by her also.
In that book, it's like I really liked learning about World War II, and I've never gone into the other ones, but it kind of it makes you like have many feelings about like what happens to all these people that is so unfair. Like in World War II, I really like reading about Anne Frank and how like they
The Jewish
just
Holocaust.
take her and take everyone and put them in cells and stuff, and
Yeah.
that sort of exact same thing happened with the black people.
Yeah, you just have some injustices. We talk about some racism in here and injustices towards people. We talk about friendship. We talk about love in this story. There's a lot of different themes that we can pull from this story and that you could focus on or choose from. So I want to thank you for coming in today. I appreciate your honesty. I appreciate your openness about how you feel and feeling safe enough to talk about how you felt. So I hope that this helps maybe entice you to read more about the Civil War or racism or friendship or love or heritage, family. Yes.
Are we gonna come back to the library again?
Yes, you guys will come back to the library again. So thank you. You guys can head on out, and I appreciate you. Thank you for all you
For this little group that we did?
Oh, we might do another one. Yeah, we can do some more book talks.
Okay.